This video is going to be a film study look at the drastic and obvious improvements that Zach Orr's defensive staff made in their game plan against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Of course, it ended up in an 18-16 loss, but I think there's some statistical markers. Number one, number two, there are some indicators on the film that this defense is starting to turn the corner, or in fact already has begun to do so. And I'll use statistics to back that up in a moment, essentially to summarize how other teams had defended the Steelers and what the Ravens were able to do on Sunday. First, from a possession standpoint, have to give credit to the game plan and the preparation, because the first half, yes, the Ravens end up being down 9-7 after a really poor turnover, a forced fumble or strip of Isaiah Likely by Patrick Queen. But here's the possessions in the first half for the Steelers. They get a field goal after a turnover, Derrick Henry's fumble. 3-and-out punt. We stop them on four downs on their third possession. Fourth possession, 3-and-out punt. Fifth possession, it's a 10-play drive for 50 yards. They go up 6-0. That's the only production they got in the first half offensively at all. Every other drive in the first half was a 3- or 4-play sequence. The sixth possession, after they go up 6-0, 3-and-out punt. Seventh, you guessed it, 3-and-out punt. And then the final one, after we've taken a 7-6 lead, and Zach Orr's defense has gotten a stop late second quarter. Likely's fumble allows the Steelers to take a 9-7 lead. Point being, they came into the game prepared. Guys were playing a lot quicker. The reactions were better, if you ask me. Things seemed connected more in terms of the different alignments, the different fronts that guys showed. And I think that guys also, their eye discipline seemed to improve, and I'll show two specific examples of that. Roquan Smith was one of them that I'll show. I thought he played spectacular, probably deserving of an independent film study video just focused on him. Oweh, 2.5 sacks. Humphrey, an interception, another one. Tre'Davious White gave us a spark in his matchup against George Pickens. The Ardarius Washington-Kyle Hamilton duo has to be mentioned as well in terms of being a possible factor here. Moving forward, it looks like that's the duo that they're going to go with. Some statistical markers or indications, I think, that tell us that the Ravens defense played very well. And this wasn't just the Steelers being a somewhat limited offense in terms of weapons and their conservative approach. So for the game, Steelers averaged 4.1 yards per play, 303 yards, and 18 first downs on 13 possessions. So they're getting about 1.5 first downs on each possession. Moving a little bit further into the data, 4.1 yards per play against the Ravens. The week before, it was 4.2 against Washington. So I thought, okay, let me keep backtracking by week and see how they performed against other teams' yards per play. Essentially, how limited were they offensively against other teams like the Giants, Jets, and the Raiders? Well, against the Giants, 6.8 yards per play, 26-18 victory. Against the Jets, 6.2 yards per play. Against the Raiders, who they were able to put up 30 points against, 4.7 yards per play. Point being, of the teams that I went back and looked 5 games prior, the Ravens had given up the least yards per play against the Steelers offense. I think this is something we can replicate in that matchup, in my opinion. How it leads into the game against the Chargers, I don't know. Of course, they're going to be more run-heavy based with Greg Roman in charge of the offense. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards back there getting a lot of carries. Let's get to the film, and we will focus on certain guys. I'm going to generally leave this to the first half. I don't think the quality of the defense changed in the second half, but I think the point will get across in terms of some of the things we're getting accomplished. This is first possession, and I'm glad to see this coverage return. This is, I would call it, 2 under, 4 deep. It's 11 personnel, tight end, receiver on the same side as the running back, so A-gun. And we're blitzing Kyle Hamilton. It's a 5-man rush. That only leaves 6 in coverage, so the way we get it accomplished is pretty much where they stand. We're going to play 2 deep, 4 under, cover 2, which is a little bit less frequently played than Tampa 2 or other versions of cover 2 that have 5 under. So when I say 4 under, these are the 4 underneath droppers I'm talking about. It is a quick throw on a 1st and 10 by Russell Wilson to George Pickens, and Roquan is reacting immediately to the throw, making a short tackle. I think it ends up being a 4-yard gain. This is early in the game. I feel like this is kind of indicative of the way the Ravens played defense that day against the pass. When Russell Wilson got the ball off quick, we were able to react, converge, make tackles for short gains. What we really had difficulty with from a conceptual standpoint, in my opinion, was play action running back screens. And I'll show one of them here a little bit later. This is later on in the first possession. It's a 2nd and 8. We're going to hold them to a field goal one play after this. This is after Derrick Henry's fumble. Kyle Van Noy, he didn't finish anything in terms of sacks the other day, but he certainly was able to get in the window at times. In this case, Russell Wilson faking a toss play to Najee Harris. One tight end, I think Freiermuth sliding out into the flats. Watch the coverage that we get on Pickens, and then the backside receiver, I think, is Mike Williams. Everything is taken away. So when I say very connected, that's what I mean. You've got Hamilton converging down on Williams. That's the only guy that you could say, okay, maybe there's opportunity to throw him the football, but Roquan Smith is in that window. Marlon Humphrey is covering up Freiermuth. And then back here, you've got Wiggins and Ardarius to deal with George Pickens. Nothing for Russell Wilson to do, nothing available to him, and Kyle Van Noy in his face has to throw it away. I'm not going to go over every single snap. We hold him to a field goal there after the turnover, which was fortunate. Really unusual, anomalous play here. I think at some point teams are just going to call this guy a tight end and treat him as such, because when he's in the game, they're operating out of 12 personnel formations and 12 personnel concepts. So this is 11 personnel, second possession, slot I. They've lined up a wide receiver, Skoernick, at fullback. I love the look that we use. We're in our nickel defense because Simpson and Roquan are the only inside linebackers on the field. But we kick our D tackles down into what really ends up looking like a 5-3 look, because we take Simpson and we utilize him as an edge defender, that versatility that he offers. So when Ardarius walks into the box, which is in response to the fullback coming down, we're really in a 5-3 look, with Ardarius and Marlon Humphrey being in the box to support Roquan Smith, kind of like this bear look, almost like a 4-eye there, a little bit more of a 3 to the weak side. It makes sense because the tight end is over here, so the 4-eye situation makes sense to me. They're running it away from the tight end, and I think this is a designed wind back. Ardarius, thankfully, is lined up in the box because he's able to fit on the backside. Look at Skoernick bring this back. Earlier in the game, and at other points during the game, they were extremely well. Ardarius also, he showed the versatility in coverage, but also the ability to get involved in the box against the run. And you've got backside win here by Tre'Davious against, I think it's Broderick Jones, who to me did not look extreme possession, 1st and 10. And we're giving the Steelers a look that basically says, hey, we can handle your 11/12 personnel hybrid looks with Skoernick in there. So if you want to keep going that route, we can match it and make life difficult on you. And I think they certainly did. Still second possession. It's going to be an incomplete pass on a 3rd and 1. I believe it's a 3rd and 1 up the left sideline. And Brandon Stevens is involved in the coverage on Austin. What I do want to point out is Roquan is signaling. I think he's telling Brandon Stevens, hey, this is coming to you. Whatever he saw on film leading up to the game, and then whatever he saw pre-snap here in terms of what Russell Wilson may have looked at, he knew what it was. He told Brandon Stevens, hey, they're coming after you. Did it necessarily affect the way Brandon played it? Not obviously, but he does get his hand up pre-snapped on the play. That's one thing that I think has to be mentioned. There did seem to be, I thought I noticed, more pre-snap communication by our guys on defense. Whatever Zach Orr and the defensive staff did to prepare them for these moments against the Steelers, it was sharp and it was precise and focused, laser focused on what the Steelers were doing because those guys were prepared. You could see it in their play. I know people say you can't see effort, you can't see passion, and you can't see preparedness. I think I do, and I think you can when you watch us play. Maybe if you're not playing well, you're not going to be passionate. So it's a chicken or the egg situation, perhaps. I think the Ravens came in with the right amount of preparedness and the right amount of passion to try to stop the Steelers team on their home turf. Moving forward here, this will be third possession, it's 11 personnel. And they catch us showing our blitz with Trenton Simpson. And so Russell Wilson has an idea of where he can go with the football quickly. Well, Ardarius Washington's quickness comes into play here, and his decisiveness. He makes contact. Look where the line of scrimmage is here. It's the -37, and Ardarius's feet are at the 49. He moves up slightly right as the ball is snapped. And so watch where this ball is completed to Warren and where Ardarius comes from. Well, why is he responsible for that? Because Trenton Simpson is blitzing. And on the play, Roquan is also pushing to that side. Fortunately for us, because Ardarius isn't able to bring Jaylen Warren down. But look where the contact is made. The contact is made, let's call it 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's a great play by Ardarius. Even though he can't finish the tackle, Roquan Smith does for a 3-yard gain. I think it's great effort. It illustrates to me how committed Ardarius is to his reads. Hopefully he can stay healthy because he had an impact, if you ask me. Again, it's 11 personnel trips. The Steelers, know that Trenton Simpson is blitzing. I'm not sure what Russell Wilson does here if he doesn't, quote, know that Trenton Simpson is going to blitz and kind of vacate incredibly quickly, at least in this first matchup against the Ravens defense. Maybe that'll change the next time we play them. We have some more familiarity, and maybe they'll prepare differently. This is still that third possession. You guys know how it ends in the goal line stand or stand on 4th and 1, I should say. Matabike plays a role here. Kyle Hamilton as well. When you get to end zone angle, you'll see the nature of what should occur from a blocking standpoint between Jones and Washington. They're early in the game. You get a 4th down stop or stand midfield or even on the other team's side. That is huge because you've now almost dissuaded them from going for it in some of these other situations later on in the game. Van Noy is kind of swimming this kick out block by the fullback who didn't do a really nice job there. Jones and Washington, neither one handles Matabike. He's able to split it, disrupt the pulling guard. Kyle Hamilton also free. Part of a defense, either as a player, a coach, that makes those kind of stops. It always gets your team fired up. We would often say to our kids, we hope that the other team goes for it on 4th and 1 early because that's going to build momentum for us. Number one. Number two, it's also going to tell their coach, hey, if you go for it again on 4th and 1 against us, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get stopped. We've already done so. I feel like it plants a seed of doubt in their mind as a coaching staff, and that could influence their 3rd down calls. That's the larger point there, I think, that happens here in this game against the Steelers. They were off kilter in the first half. Credit to Zach Orr's defense. Again, other than that one drive, 10 plays, 50 yards for a field goal to go up, I believe, 6-0. They got nothing accomplished in the first half. A bunch of 3- and 4-play drives. Moved on to the 4th possession here, and Tre'Davious Robinson played extremely well. He dominates Freiermuth here on this 11 personnel power play. So it's twin slot, under center. There is some real tendencies in terms of their run pass when Wilson is under center versus in the shotgun. We'll get into more of that later, not necessarily in this video. But Freiermuth is going to kick out or attempt to kick out Tre'Davious Robinson. Also, I believe it's the left guard pulls and wraps, so it's one-back power, essentially. And Tre'Davious Robinson just wins at the point of attack. You can see he stands Freiermuth up completely, and there's just nowhere to go for Najee Harris. You will get the end zone angle here in a moment, but Tre'Davious Robinson has dominated his gap, 2-gap as a defensive tackle. But when he steps down here, he will hold outside position and also compress the gap that'll end up to the inside of the kickout block, the collision between him and Freiermuth. So you can see, stands him up, nice low pad level, totally gets into his chest, upends him in his gap to the outside, and compressing this interior gap such that I've always liked Cordell Patterson. They didn't get anything done, accomplished with him the other day. I still think it's a smart signing for them to get a player like him on the roster who can play running back and or receiver on any particular snap. Still 4th possession. This one's going to be pretty much over after Oweh's sack against the left tackle. It's empty, and they're trying to go with a slot fade. Continued to mention this all year. I think it's worthy of talking about from day one. The only guy who's consistently been collisioning, making contact with receivers, contesting ground has been Marlon Humphrey. Will other guys do it more often as we get closer, as we get further along in the season? Not sure. I just know that you can, where they have one great defender and then four average ones. And that one great defender contests everything and makes life horrible for whoever he's defending with the ball in her hands. One of Oweh's 2.5 sacks, he was actually involved in a fourth sack situation that got called back for a penalty. This is a nice move. Jumping swat down and then clears the left tackle. He gave those guys problems, whether it was the left tackle, whether it was the right tackle. Hopefully we can get that version of Oweh to show up pretty much every week. Again, we're just going to focus on the first half generally here. I think it's going to get the picture across. I'm not sure what Malik Harrison is signaling here. He notices something. This is 12 personnel slot eye, so it's different from what I showed you earlier, where Skowronek, 15, the wide receiver / tight end / fullback, was at fullback. So this is the same formation, but it's from a different personnel platform. I love what we've got going on here from a look standpoint. Because of the formation, when a tight end walks into the box, we've essentially created one of my favorite defenses that there is that I know of, and that's the under front with the strong safety rolled down to the weak side. I don't have time to necessarily go over it in great detail. It's just during my first exposure to it, I remember I had some questions. Why is the strong safety to the weak side? Why isn't he to the strong side? And then as I became more exposed to it, I at some point in my coaching career made the decision, we're going to go to this, and I became an eagle under front guy with the strong safety roll down weak as much as possible against 21 personnel, which is what this ends up being from a formation standpoint. Yes, 83 and 80 are both tight ends, but the markers or the characteristics of it are a 1 technique nose tackle, or a 2-eye, a 5 technique defensive end who's in the C gap, a 9 technique edge defender normally standing up, a 3 technique to the weak side away from the tight end, and then a 5 technique weak with the strong safety rolled up into the box. That's the under front kicked up with the strong safety weak side, and I think it just creates a ton of problems for 21 personnel formations, run concepts, and pass plays. Ar'Darius's fit here is just spectacular. So they're running zone this way with Washington kicking out our edge defender, Tre'Davious Robinson. It's that wind back look, and Ar'Darius fits this perfectly on the backside. It's not just about where he takes it on, pretty much almost right at the line of scrimmage, but it's the leverage side he plays with. He goes to the inside of the block, which is amazing because he knows the edge defender, Tre'Davious Robinson, is outside of him. This, to me, shows you the versatility of Ar'Darius. Look, he's the smallest guy out there on the field, unless, Calvin Austin or the nickel defender for the Steelers, Bishop, is out there. They wouldn't be facing off against each other. But point being, he's hard-nosed. He's very smart. I think this look is great against this 21 formation, even though it's out of a 12 personnel platform. Again, it's one of my favorite defenses to run at all when a team wants to be in anything with a tight end attached and 2 running backs in the backfield. Still 5th possession here, and this is going to be the concept that the Steelers went to as their way to get yards in a safe manner. And they do execute it really well from a legality standpoint. It's a play-action screen to the running back, and no, their offensive linemen are not downfield. Just take note of where the line of scrimmage is, just past the 15. Motion with the tight end, and they do actually run the ball back away from this motion, but they generally do it out of 11 personnel. So there's something to be said for that. But this setup is nice for them. It's generally into the boundary. This is going to be complete to Harris. There is nothing that Malik Harrison can do here. He's got 2 blockers in front. Urban is getting locked up with the left tackle. When Harris catches it, look at how much space there is. Ends up being a 19-yard gain. They called that concept 4 times in the game on Sunday, and they called a tight end screen once. If you remember, Adisa Isaac knocked the pass down. I think that they went to, this is fifth possession, and I talked about this in my reaction video. They started to go to this stuff when they realized Russell Wilson wasn't going to be capable of getting the ball out quickly underneath against the various different looks and coverages we were playing. Still fifth possession, and this is an empty set on a 3rd and 1. Now, why do we have so many guys up here? Because they're in Jumbo 13. There's an eligible offensive lineman, number 74. There's Darnell Washington, 80, their big tight end. And just under here, just above that line there, you can see the tight end, the other tight end's feet, Freiermuth. So it's 13 personnel with Patterson, who is a wide receiver / tailback, as the lone tailback running back on the field. So really nice setup by them on a 3rd and 1. We defended extremely well. Russell Wilson is looking down here. Simpson has dropped out underneath of Pickens. Patterson is running kind of like some clear out concept. Again, it's a 3rd and 1. Watch what happens between point. But this is a push off. If you guys, I don't understand how this isn't considered a push off. It's this look. We have non-pass rushers on the field at some of these positions. I think Kyle Hamilton's right. I think you've got to push off there on George Pickens. That creates space. In any case, they go down and get a field goal on this drive to take a 6-0 lead. Still on that 5th possession, an amazing play by Roquan Smith here, and you will get the end zone angle. Kyle Hamilton's also going to chase a run concept down kind of from behind. It's 11 personnel with Skowronek on. He's going to motion across, and then they run the motion. They run back away from the motion against the grain of it, and Roquan goes underneath here. This is a exquisite run fit for me. I thought he may have played his best game of the year. Not just because of how he fit the run and his effort and tenacity and where he showed up. And when he did show up, he had bad intentions. But because of how well he played against the pass. This is the same play. We'll let Skowronek get into the screen. We've recognized that even though it's 11 personnel, it's a run setup with him on the field. He's going to motion across. Kyle Hamilton chasing it down. And then Roquan is going to get the fit here for, it's a 2-yard gain by Harris. He recognizes that Travis Jones has won to the top side, the front side, and so Harris is going to the back side, and that's where Roquan fits it, but he's got the offensive lineman to navigate as well. This is beautiful, man. I hope you appreciate it as much as I do. There is still a really, really good football player in there, and that guy showed up on Sunday. We need him every week. Unfortunately, we've got a hamstring issue, kind of the way it goes in 2024 for the Ravens. Who knows what his status is? I guess we'll begin to find out Wednesday into Thursday when practice starts. Still 5th possession. Short completion to Skowronek out of 11 personnel. It's the same formation that we just showed, except the difference is Wilson is in the gun. Our guys seem to be better at identifying this. Notice we're not all stacked up in the box. Humphrey is, because he's the nickel defender. There's 2 receivers, and the ball is to the field. The field side is down here. The left side is the wide side of the field, even though the hatches are closer. Kyle Hamilton is now at half-field safety. Orr'S at half-field safety because even though it's 11 personnel with Skowronek on the field, they're in the gun, and that kind of overrides some of their run-pass tendencies. I like that we're dropping Van Noy into coverage more, and we're blitzing some of our inside linebackers. I think we got to get more into that. 4-man rushes, basically, with 1 inside linebacker blitzing and an OLB dropping. And in this case, we do it to the field with Van Noy dropping to the hash and Marlon pushing out to the curl flat. It really is a cover 3, if you ask me, with Ar'Darius spinning down to the flats here as a second-level defender. Second-level defender, Van Noy dropping out, and then Marlon Humphrey. Those to me would be your 4 underneath droppers with your cover 3 shell. It's a 2nd and 8 after the great run fit by Roquan, and Marlon downhill. What I like about the way, I think Marlon's playing really well physically and from a tenacity and effort standpoint and physicality, but he's also very intelligent. So this is George Pickens over here. He knows that. Look at his depth that he's got. He's underneath of this route, such that he's not allowing Russell Wilson to get the ball there at all. Go ahead and throw it there if you want to. With the way that Marlon's been catching the ball in 2024, makes him throw the check down, if you will, out into the flats, tackles him for a short gain. 3rd and 4, very next snap. Again, we're going to hold them to a field goal. They get they take a 6-0 lead. I think this is an amazing job by Roquan, and I want to run this back multiple times. So you've got a tight end here, Pickens in the slot, 3rd and 4, 5th possession for the Steelers. No, the ball is not thrown. Why not? Well, first of all, he's not staring at the quarterback. Watch his head, and I'll run this back multiple times, and then you'll see the end zone angle. He picks up the tight end, and then we call this ping pong eyes. Think of the game of ping pong. The ball goes from one side of the net to the other, and back and forth. So he's ping ponging his eyes between the tight end, looking for work out here, and Russell Wilson. Sounds impossible, but you can teach it. You can rep it. What efficiency level can you get to? To be perfectly honest with you, and I never said this to my players at all, for our inside linebackers, if we felt like the best we could do was 75-80% accuracy in terms of them replicating that technique on the field in live game situations. Of course, I would never say that to my players. I'm admitting that to you because it's difficult to do. It's that tough. So same play, end zone angle. You will see Roquan here, and the tight end will cross underneath. And I think he's passing him off man. Chris Board's on the field too, by the way, so that's interesting. I think this is man from a release standpoint. He has already looked over here to pass the tight end off, see if Russell Wilson thrown it, and now he is looking off screen. He's off the frame for you guys. My apologies. Guess I have to do it from the All-22. Picked up the tight end with his eyes. Passes him underneath. Took a quick glance at Russell Wilson to see if the ball was thrown, and now he's getting the receiver here. I think this is a drastic departure from what we've seen Roquan do prior to last week. I feel like in previous game situations, he would have been staring at the quarterback the whole time, and this ball may have been thrown in a window that would have been, quote, open because Roquan perhaps may not have been standing here. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I don't get any sense from him at all. Let me move this over for the end zone angle so you guys can hopefully see it a little bit. I don't get any sense from Roquan at all that he is staring at the quarterback with as heavy a focus here as he often has in 2024. You guys have to let me know what you think of that thought in the comments section. This is a very specific, perhaps minute thing, not easy to teach at all in my experience. Maybe there's just way better teachers than me out there. We did it, and we practiced it oftentimes in practice, particularly in the summer, when you're doing 7-on-7 passing leagues, to see how well we could get at it. You get higher efficiency when you know it's a pass play. Obviously, this is a 3rd and 4, so perhaps that has something to do with it. As it relates to Roquan's play, I think it was his most precise game from a run fit standpoint, and the game where he showed the best eye discipline against the pass at the same time. So how that happened, what Zach Orr did and other guys, I don't know. I just feel like that's what the film illustrates to me. Moving forward here, we're 6th possession, and I love that we're blitzing Roquan more. I got him blitzing 3 times in this game. All 3 times, I believe it ended up being a 4-man rush. In this case, it ends up being a sack. Is it related to Roquan? Well, it is Broderick Washington, and that's where Roquan blitzes. But check out how we're getting this done. So it ends up being a Tampa 2, in my opinion, a version of a Tampa 2. With Marlon dropping out of here at safety, half field. Kyle Hamilton already essentially lined up as right half field safety. Darius is going to be the, quote, Mike linebacker in the middle of the field, the middle third in a Tampa 2. Mathematically, I know it doesn't work. Brandon Stevens is the flat defender. Up here, Wiggins, flat defender. And then I really love this by Malik Harrison. Check out the difference in how he does this. I mean, Simpson kind of does as well. We would call this a wrong read. So he's stepping forward, trying to see if it's run or pass. Oh, blank, it's pass. Let me turn my back and get to my zone and make sure that that area is covered. and we don't have a zone that's voided. You can see the cover 2 structure of it now with our 4 underneath, Ar'Darius in the middle. You guys are losing Hamilton off the bottom left side, but there is Marlon Humphrey. Hopefully, I've explained this in a way that it's just related to Ar'Darius being inserted into the starting lineup, but I think it is a factor. He's very versatile. He can move across the width and the verticality of the football field, and it had an impact. Zach Orr was able to be a little bit more multiple, in my opinion, and help other guys move around. And I think blitzing Roquan is a factor as well, because it makes us less predictable from a coverage standpoint. Roquan, if you remember, was oftentimes walked up on the line of scrimmage threatening the blitz, but he never actually did rush. I like what we're doing now with him, having him off or maybe a little bit closer to the ball than normal, and then blitzing late so that the offensive line isn't prepared for it. So 7th possession, that one destroyed it. Roquan Smith is also going to blitz again. So we're going to drop Van Noy out. It's not that we haven't done these things in the past. We seem to be less focused on mug looks. Again, you got a 4-man rush. Roquan is a part of that rush. And I think you've got markers for a 4 underneath droppers here. Van Noy being into the flats. He's late getting there. Yeah, this is the 2nd and 4 speed out to Pickens where he doesn't get his often as we showed it. Finally, last play of the half, this is going to be Tre'Davious White against George Pickens. A couple of things to say here, too, about the matchups in the slot with Marlon and Austin, and then Brandon Stevens moved over here against the tight end. That'll be an interesting matchup against someone. But with what the coaches have committed to do, not play Marcus Williams or Eddie Jackson at all, he's a guy who is a starter caliber player coverage-wise. Maybe he's better suited to play against those tight ends from an athletics standpoint. He's quicker. He's more agile. He shouldn't give up, quote, double moves against those guys at all because his speed will allow him to make up for stuff so he doesn't have to go to his first move at all. Tre'Davious White just matched the physicality of Pickens, but he also ran the routes for him. It's like he almost understood the route that was coming. Oh, let me get in the way of that. In the Tre'Davious White video that I did a couple of days ago, I talked about taking a charge in basketball. I'm one of those jerks, by the way. I would usually try to take 2 or 3 or 4 charges a game, and sometimes they'd be called a block. I wanted the guy who I was guarding or the guy who I was helping defend, meaning if one of my teammates gave up a driving lane, I wanted them to know that, hey, that guy's crazy enough. He's going to try to take the charge. You're going to have to worry about that if you get near the lane. Sometimes it got called a foul on me. Sometimes it didn't. In my opinion, that's what Tre'Davious White is doing here. He's getting in the way of George Pickens' route and disrupting that flow. The ball is already in the air. I mean, this is one of the few quick decisions that Russell Wilson made from might be an interference penalty. Truly ridiculous. But that's one of the few quick decisions that Russell Wilson was willing to make. Throw the football really quickly, get it out of there on the fade. If Tre'Davious White can take that away as an option against the Steelers team, I love our matchup in the rematch in Baltimore. I think Zach Orr did a great job, particularly in the first half. I read out to you the results by possession. Again, 1 possession in the first half resulted in more than 4 plays. Truly remarkable. In 8 possessions, 7 of them were either 3 and out or 4 plays, and we stopped them on downs, or 4 plays and a field goal twice where we turned the football over. I think those guys deserve credit for the performance. Ar'Darius Washington definitely played a role. There are improvements in certain techniques, if you ask me. There's improvements in guys playing more violent. That's not the sole explanation. I think all of those factors contributed to a damn near vintage performance by the Ravens defense in the first half that unfortunately was wasted because the Steelers defense played really well as on the other side, and the Ravens offense had tremendous difficulty against them. I appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. My defense review here and my Lamar Jackson film study from Tuesday probably went on a little bit too long, but this is the Ravens Steelers. We only get to watch it twice a year, maybe 3, if both teams make the playoffs and it gets set up that way. So it's fun. It's fun to watch now that the game is. We're now more than 48 hours past the game, and we can just evaluate what we saw on film. A lot of good things on the defense, in my opinion, starting with Roquan Smith, the addition of Ardarius Washington into the starting lineup, and using guys like Tavius Robinson and Brent Urban a little more. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at how the Ravens defense improved and was able to outright stop a Steelers offense that had been averaging 30 points per game since Russell Wilson became the starter, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.